Good day, everybody. Let's talk about arbitration. Arbitration is one of the more complex aspects of union and management negotiations. Certainly one of the most misunderstood. And the impact of arbitrations can be quite pervasive, not only to the relationship, but to the organization in general. What is arbitration? Arbitration is often a third party, somebody from outside the organization that comes in to hear a case, to settle an issue. There's many other aspects of arbitration that come into play, but in general, it's somebody from the outside, very similar to a mediator, who comes in and tries to determine what's best, the best resolution for a specific case. Let's talk about some of the particulars of arbitration, and these may lead you to really consider whether you can try to avoid arbitrations in the future. First is, you often have to know what the main reason for the arbitration is. It's often not the issue, and in my experience, it's actually not. There tends to be a breakdown in a relationship between two parties. Two parties can't resolve an issue. Therefore, they have to try to figure out what best way will resolve that type of issue. It's the inability of two sides to come to some sort of an agreement, to be able to communicate in an effective manner, one that is absolutely needed to have some kind of conflict resolution. So you bring somebody from the outside. But it often starts because the relationship has broken down. That's often the main reason of arbitration. The issue the problem is often secondary. Second, there's an issue of binding or non-binding arbitration. This is a provision in arbitration which says that the resolution from the third party is either binding on both parties, which means they must stand by it, or non-binding, which means it's advisory. If it's an advisory, meaning non-binding arbitration, then it's very similar to a mediator. Somebody comes in to listen to both sides and try to make a resolution. In most cases, arbitration is binding, which means once you enter into arbitration, whatever the third party individual decides resolves the issue. It's catastrophic to an organization. When you have somebody from the outside that comes in and imposes a decision, they often don't know, in my case, care about the implications of the decision. They just want to resolve that issue. These individuals are highly paid. They get anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a day to look at a resolution. So it's highly profitable for somebody to be an arbitrator. And they often don't have to live with the decision. Can you imagine if you owned a business or just your own home, someone from outside your home comes in and says, well, this is what you're going to have to do. Whether you can afford it or not, whether it's going to be catastrophic to your relationship or not, you have to follow that decision. Most would say no, it's their home. They're not going to have binding arbitration. The same goes for a business. If you own the business or you're an executive in the business, you don't want somebody from the outside coming in telling you how to spend your money and how to create relationships with unions. Binding and non-binding arbitration is certainly a key factor in whether you should have or not have arbitration. Third is the impact of decision. We referenced this somewhat, but when you have somebody from the outside imposing a decision on an organization, they certainly don't have to live with the consequences. It's much easier in these cases to have a resolution to an issue that may not be best for the future of the organization, though it solves the immediate problem. That leads to the future of relationships. Once organizations start turning towards arbitration to resolve their issues, in many cases, and in my experiences, the relationship is irreparably harmed. You must work on resolving the relationship before you could ever have a chance of eliminating arbitrations. That leads to this final comment. I don't think there's any case where an organization will want to have binding arbitration. It has to be negotiated, which means unions and management have to negotiate to have arbitration, especially binding arbitrations. My strong opinion is to never, ever abdicate your responsibility and your right to run your business. As an employee, it's the best thing you can ever have because you often can try to get somebody who is a little bit more amenable to seeing an employee's viewpoint through an arbitrator. But it can be destructive for the relationship of the organization. And I think over the long term, it's going to be destructive for the organization as well. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the day.